I'm here with Penn Badgley.
Hello.
You know that guy. And
I am you.
Yes.
I am you.
You are you, or like not you. But you are the reason why I was able to ignore my family for 2 days, because that's all it took to watch season 2, which is now streaming on Netflix. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Penn, did you notice a shift in season 1 was on Lifetime and then it was on Netflix, and some of us watched it on Lifetime, and then all of a sudden it shows up on Netflix? And did you feel that shift in like all of a sudden everyone was talking about the show?
Well, I mean, it was tectonic, you know. I mean, it went from being something that was like, all right, it's, you know, it's there, to being a part of this cultural discourse, kind of, almost, you know. Yeah, it's been huge, and it reflects the way that, I mean, television has changed, just the way you view it.
Yeah.
I mean, from 10 years ago, like when Gossip Girl first came out, I mean, it's just like, it's not even I was trying to explain cable to my stepson, and I mean, I realized, I was like, man, you don't even, Anyway.
I mean, so everything changed. And then did that make you feel any differently about, like, a different pressure about going back and shooting season 2? Because I imagine when you're filming season 1, it's sort of like, yeah, like, here's this, like, weird, kind of awesome, bizarre story, and it's in a vacuum. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is one of those shows. And I imagine you had that on Gossip Girl, too. Well,
Gossip Girl was more obviously designed to just be a hit. Like, that's what they were trying to do. This is not 100% different from that, but because it centers around a guy who is acting this way, I mean, you just can't guarantee anything. There's something to this show that does actually share DNA with Gossip Girl, just enough so that it can be what it's become.
Your hair?
Yeah, it's my hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
It's probably partly my hair. But then it also has this really key element where, I mean, it's quite subversive, it's quite disturbing, and hopefully what that does is that it then becomes this thought-provoking portal into, wow, yeah, a lot of these things that we've just sort of lazily accepted and consumed in the past and passed off as like a desirable relationship model is crazy. It's actually just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Goldberg, your character, in case anyone has not seen you, and if you haven't, just cancel your plans and go binge 2 seasons on Netflix, where it is living now. He is, I don't even know what his diagnosis is, but he's a murderer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, okay, so to be fair, here's the way I see it. And there are people, I think, like, I've read reviews from, what do you call them? You call them, like, they're like medical journals.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read a review that was in a medical journal where a person who I think was at least in their 30s, they seemed like they were getting some kind of, I mean, this is an advanced human mind, basically reviewing the show in order to diagnose the character and naming all the various kind of like complexes and conditions he has. So there's that. He does have these things. But I have to say, he to me is an allegory. He's a metaphor. He's a commentary. He's not a real person.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm acting as him, it's different. But when I think about him as me, he's, I don't think that we could actually clinically diagnosed Joe, because he's behaving in an impossible way, I think, because what we're trying to like say things about relationships and these delusions we have about love, and the fact that we create, we more or less always seem to believe that the problem in the relationship is the other person or some external circumstance, when all that we can really control is how we behave. You know, that's what we should be focusing on. So I think, in a way, Joe is this giant allegory for that.
Yeah, and also for just what we're willing to put up with in society, and the qualities that we
too, yes, so much of
the
that.
qualities that we tolerate or embrace, or you know, the qualities that someone encourage that someone might have that, you know, that enable you to completely be blind to other qualities that someone may have. It feels very, I mean, as I was watching it, the season 2, which just came out at the end of December, it felt so incredibly timely to me, because there was some really interesting, you know, I feel like certainly like post Me Too in our culture, there's an interesting conversation about like men who pretended to be allies but weren't, and in some ways, like Joe is so that there's something about him that he is very much an ally. He's very, especially in season 2, he's very protective in some ways. He's he's in some ways fighting the good fight, and in some ways he's killing the good fight, so
no, I mean, that's where I think, like, I wonder if a person could really be that sympathetic and have that much clarity. It's probably possible, actually. I shouldn't just dismiss this idea that he's a real person, but yeah, I mean, it's complex. What we're all understanding from our unique vantage points, we're all trying to be allies to one another, and but to me, he's a great exercise in blindness, and in the way privilege inculcates blindness. The danger of a given privilege, which you experience more or less just because of the body you inhabit and the place you were born. You know what I mean? Like, those are arbitrary things that you have nothing to do with, and yet you live the life, and therefore you have the privilege. And that's why I think a lot of people who have any number of privileges, they kind of bristle at the idea that they have that. But the danger of it, I think, especially for the average person, because they're not being so outwardly violent to anybody else, is just a blindness that we have. I mean, nobody can see everything. So it's like, to me, Joe is just this like hyped up, like amphetamine version of that.
What was it like reading the medical journal then? That was like, he has this, and he has this, and he has this.
I mean, personally, I thought it was like a noble effort, but I was like, it was so technical that I couldn't even really read it. Like, I mean, bless them for doing it. I think what I'm going to do between seasons 2 and 3 is
go to medical school.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to double down on the research. I think because I've been having this experience in one way and it's been working, but I think now I want to understand better how to make this person real, because I think I've done what's necessary to make him real thus far, and now I want to really explore the degrees of mental illness that he's exhibiting.
How are you going to do that?
I don't know. I literally, even as I think about it, I'm like, half my brain gets the chills. ASMR?
Right. Yes, yes.
That's what I just got thinking about it.
That's so funny, because when I was reading some things last night about you, and then you were in my dream, by the way. But
really?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that later.
Sure.
But there was Penn Badgley does ASMR.
ASMR, that's right. Yeah, I did do that.
Oh. And I listened to it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I like the idea. I get ASMR all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I experience chill. I guess it's more or less chills, right? Or is it more specific than that?
It's all, yeah. I mean, yes, it is kind of chills, but I feel like it's almost like
it's very
more
visceral.
profound.
Yeah, no, it is profound. I mean, I don't know. I think life is profound. So I just
what? But like, do you get it when like you watch a like video or something of like a car backing over mud?
So yeah, that's what I don't get about this whole movement. I don't experience, but I've never tried. I've never tried. I guess I think the way people seem to experience it now, it's very sensory. It's very like, it's triggered by the senses, whereas I feel like I get it a lot triggered by thought processes and emotions and stuff. Yeah.
What about by the sounds?
I mean, I don't think, the only thing I can think of is like those sounds that make your skin crawl, like for me, chalk and like the sound of something with paper. I'm trying to, like, when it actually
I can't.
When a pencil is not sharpened enough and it scrapes over paper. Isn't that like,
it is the worst sound, like the brown part of the pencil.
It's painful to think about.
I also have it with like metal forks against a clay plate or something, like an earth. Yeah, that's real. That's real problematic.
That's like That's like, I just have a bad pun. That's like ZSMR. A to Z, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Not a good pun if you have to explain it.
No, I like
moving
it.
Moving on.
I like it. I like it. That's good. How was it moving the show to LA this year? Because I have to say, like, it worked so beautifully because Joe just hates LA. And it was like this perfect juxtaposition of this dark thing with like the beauty and the sunniness of
I remember
LA.
Greg Berlanti, co-creator of the show, and like Mr. Television has broken every record, and he's a brilliant guy
and a great
obviously.
guy.
Yeah,
also.
no, he is. He's got a great heart and a great mind. He said that he thought it was sadder, that the show was more sad in L.A. And I remember at the time, I think just the way he said it was like, because it's LA, like we're taking the concept and putting it in LA, therefore it is even. And I have such a biased view of it all. I can't even tell. I'm not even sure. I don't know if that's true about the show. For me, watching it, I feel like it's different. It's cool because in a way, the show is so Joe, like it's so in his mind that you can put him anywhere. That was another thing he said. He's like, I feel like we could put you in Hawaii, man, and we just anything will work, you know, almost. And we'll probably test that over time.
I was fascinated to see how you interacted with fans of the show after season 1, because people were like, oh my God, I love Joe. And, you know, and you were like trying to wrap your mind around that, which I think is fascinating, which was what my dream was about last night. We were talking and I quoted you back to you, which was a quote that I'd read that you had said yesterday, but that it stayed in my subconscious and it was in my dream, which was that all the research that you needed for season 2, I think you said it, maybe it was just in my dream. All the research you needed for season 2 was or were the tweets and the things that people said to you after season 1.
Right. So I don't know if I quite said that, but I think I said something to the effect of like seeing people's response and how willing they were to love Joe was like all the motivation I needed for season 2, something along those lines. I think that something for all of my thinking around this show, something very different happens when they say action. You know, it's not an intellectual process. It's very intuitive. And the kind of research that I've done thus far has actually been, like I said before too, like it's not been clinical. It's been very, very intuitive. Just simply believing everything Joe says, which takes a lot of work when I first read it. And I think he's doing something awful. It takes a lot of work to overcome your judgment of that. So for me, it ends up being, again, this kind of emotional, spiritual exercise that is deep, but it doesn't go very far in the way of research. It's just, it's like preparation. I think the research I'll do now is, like I said before, I'm interested in this dimension of mental illness that I've not yet so consciously been exploring. I've been thinking about it a lot for other reasons in life and like reading, like picking up books on schizophrenia and narcissism. But I think it's really the way to dive into him in the future, to keep him real. Because I think thus far it's worked. But if any of us, if it's me or the writers or the directors, any the other actors, if any of us are kind of like doing the same thing again with this concept,
right?
I think it's a mistake, you know?
Right?
Because it's like it just becomes problematic.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, too, because Joe doesn't necessarily know Joe's diagnosis. So it's almost like as the person inhabiting Joe, you don't want to really, I imagine there's that push and pull. You want to know, but you want to know what he knows,
And like, it's my understanding that like no one is born evil. No one is born wrong. Like what happens is we receive a miseducation. We're lacking something as opposed to receiving, like you don't, trauma in a sense, in abuse in a sense, and I'm speaking sensitively, not trying to generalize here, but my understanding of it partly is that like what it does is it withholds the victim from further experience, from a further healthy maturity and progress along a path to healthy relationships and experience. So it's not so much that like this evil kind of thing it's less of a substance than it is an absence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that's the way I see Joe's evil. It's not a positively existing thing. It's a lack. It is a sore lacking that at the end of the day, for me and my very intimate relationship to him as a character, it makes me very sad for him, as opposed to like mad. Like, I don't want retribution for Joe. I just feel so bad for him that I want him to cease to exist.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, bro, you're so wrong and far from the truth.
Yeah.
It's very sad. Like, the thought of being that is sometimes all the research I need,
Yes, I imagine that would be exhausting. But I feel like I've talked to actors and they're like, in order to play someone, you have to kind of like them. So do you?
I disagree. I just disagree. Yeah, I disagree. I don't know. It's funny. I'm starting to realize that I differ greatly from a lot of other actors in the way that I think about things. Maybe that's not even true. I don't know. But I living in New York, for instance, I don't even have that many actor friends. And I approach things in a way where I'm just like, just believe it when you say it, and that actually can be more than enough. Because you're not wearing your own clothes, you're not saying your own words, you're not shooting the thing, you're not editing, you're not doing anything other than being there. And if you can really be there, if you can really be present while you're saying the things that you're saying, which can be bizarre and terrible if you're playing someone like Joe, then research be damned, clinical diagnosis is irrelevant, because we're all human and there's something intuitive happening there,
Season 3. Certainly season two ends with like a beautiful setup for season 3. When are you guys getting back to work, and what do you know?
I mean, that's the thing, is like we've been told things unofficially, but in this world, why would you believe anything until it's official?
Right.
So I literally, all I know is that if it's to continue, it's set up so I think it's actually kind of like going to be an examination of marriage in a way, like conventions and norms within that. And then also I think, because again, to me, what Joe has never had before is he's going to be in a relationship with somebody that it's like a Chinese finger trap. He's like, he's going to always be worried that she will kill him or the child. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
By the way, spoiler alert. It's sort of perfect because they're going to see each other as their arch nemesis, which in a relationship past a certain point, you always are threatened. Right. Yeah. It's not right, but it's the way that people view it. And that's unfortunate. I think that's because of, where we are collectively, and hopefully we will progress beyond that. But the problem is never actually out there. It's always something that you can do better within. Obviously, there's so many circumstances where there's stuff that toxic relationships people need to get out of. But at the end of the day, you can't control other people. The problem with abusive people is that they do think that, and then they do that.
Right.
So like if we're healthy, then we need to know that we actually can't change other people. We can only change the way we behave and react to things. So it's a great allegory for that, I think. It's like, everything that Joe does, he's going to be hemmed in by the fact that he's like, wow, I want to get out of here and get rid of her because it's clearly wrong and bad. However, if I do that, I'm leaving my child with her in a situation that's clearly wrong and bad. And all the while, what that does is it forces him to accept, but wait a second, I've actually done just as much wrong and bad, because I know he does actually see that he's killed people. So he's really in a bind, which is so, even though the stakes are much higher than it is for hardly anyone, he's in the same kind of bind that I think every relationship sees at some point, where you just, the feelings of affection have gone. You are frustrated with the imperfections of the other person, and you're thinking to yourself, how can this go on? And the irony is that actually, I think in reality, I don't know what your experience is, but mine in marriage and relationships is that that's where it truly begins. And we don't see a lot of stories about that. We do see the stories about the dissolution later, but we don't see a lot of stories that tell a victory of getting past that point. I don't think you're going to want to watch this show for that either.
I was going to say, is season 3 really going to be a victory of marriage?
But at least it's like it is this next step in the process.
Yeah. Yes, which I love, and like you said, makes it a little bit different from seasons 1 and 2. It's not just a repeat of each season is kind of exploring something different. And of course, in season 2, you see that he does have this very protective side.
Yeah.
Of Ellie and
his child, ostensibly. I mean, he does in the moment. He doesn't kill Love because she's pregnant, and I mean, it's kind of silly in a way. It's like, why do you value that human life? So because it's yours, you prick.
I wonder if audiences would have been able to come back from that with Joe.
Ugh,
I wonder what the line is for that.
That's a great question.
That can't be crossed with audiences, because audiences stay with him no matter,
You know, there are a couple things that I don't. It's almost like I don't even want to say them out loud because they're heinous. But there are a couple. Like, for instance, children. Mm-hmm. Clearly, we've drawn the line there. Clearly, Joe has the integrity of a saint when it comes to people underage.
Right, exactly.
And I think the writers are just like, you know what? We're not going to go there, even if it's inconsistent.
Yes.
Even if people who are this bad actually might do that, and probably they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we had to do that, we would all be nauseous, and frankly, I wouldn't want to be here.
Yeah.
So great on us for that.
I mean, it's a blast to watch.
It is somehow.
Somehow I feel like we've had this very serious conversation.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, that's on me. No. I get it, because it really is such a thought-provoking show, while also being
fun, so addictive and so fun and so much, such a blast to watch.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, I have to think about it like this because, by the way, it's like for 6 months at a time, I spend 16 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, inhabiting this guy's shoes. So it's like I have to think about it this way.
Yeah.
I have no choice. So, forgive me.
No, I mean, I love it. I love that you think about a character that much. I really do. Because I do love this show. Seasons 1 and 2 are streaming now on Netflix. It's great. I can't wait for season 3 to be announced, and I already can't wait to watch it and maybe feel a tiny bit better about my own marriage. Penn Badgley, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.